Yeah, I'm getting to the age where unfortunately funerals are happening more, and this one was down the coast at Bermagui. And even though it was late autumn, I decided to take the bike as I'd never ridden the Brown Mountain before. And as luck would have it, Google said it was going to be dry and comparably mild. Cooma 6 to 14 it said. You'll be fine it said. Yeah, cheers for that Google. Now, living in Canberra, I've been riding in sub-zero temperatures for years, usually just back and forth to work and around town, and I soon found out that doing an extended stint at highway speeds is a slightly different kettle of fish. Even so, icicles on the testicles turned out to be the least of my worries, as to get there in time I had to leave while it was still dark. And even though I knew riding out on the Monaro Highway pre-dawn would be a bit dodgy, I severely underestimated how bloody dodgy it would be. I had 2 near misses when a couple of kangaroos tried to Allah Akbar me before I'd even crossed the bloody border. Also, the fresh roadkill on the way out of town presented more of a minefield than I'd ever expected, as trying to spot it was hampered by heavy fog and an iced up screen, forcing me to peer over the top of it like a meerkat in a helmet. And there was a few panicky late adjustments to my line just to get around a couple of big roos and one standard 4 feet in the air dead keg on legs. At one point I actually considered pulling over and waiting for the sun to come up, but to be perfectly honest, the thought of standing around on the side of the road in the dark and the fog and the cold scared me a bit more than actually riding in it. Anyway, with a bit more good luck than good management, I reached Cooma without hitting anything of bike dropping significance. But I did manage to clip the remains of a bit of a ripe roo, the smell of which baking on the hot bits of the bike put me off my original plans of a Polo Flats pie when I stopped for fuel. Anyhow, by the time I fueled up down to coffee in a durry, the sun was up, causing the temperature to soar to a balmy 0 degrees, and I continued on hoping for a better ride. And really, even though it was still a bit cold and a bit foggy in parts, it's still better than not riding. And I even had a close encounter of a cow kind. Yeah, I'm crossing you, pal, you right? By the time I hit the Brown Mountain, it was starting to warm up and I was looking forward to the ride down, but let's just keep things in perspective, kids. I'm no boy racer. I love bendy roads as much as the next bloke, but if I'm scraping the pegs, it usually means I've stuffed up my line or speed. I ride a cruiser because I just like to cruise. But even by my standards, it was a tiptoey trip down the hill. You see, with the luck of the ride, light rain had passed through, leaving patches of wet road and surprising little runoffs here and there. And if that wasn't tricky enough, a cattle truck a ways ahead had caringly laid down a trail of liquid cow manure, mostly on the corners. Wonder if that's why they call it the Brown Mountain. Well, anyways, it wasn't as fun as I hoped, and when I arrived at Bermagui, I headed straight to where any late 50s midlife crisis biker would head after a cold, wet ride. For those of you who don't know Bermagui, it's a beautiful little fishing village that's one of my favourite places on the south coast. And although it does get a bit busy during the warmer months, it hasn't suffered the massive expansions that other towns along the coast have sold out to. And as is my usual experience with the town, I was welcomed and looked after, this time by Subuk, the Bermagui Motor Inn, who allowed me a gratis 10 AM check-in, which allowed me to get changed for the funeral. Yeah, it was a good send-off as far as funerals go, and as expected the wake was a doozy, so it was no surprise I was feeling a tad seedy when I was packing the saddlebags for the trip home the next day. But with warm sun, clear skies and dry roads, I quickly come good as I headed to the Brown. But really needed a coffee by the time I hit Bemboka, so I stopped at the terribly named Purple People Feeder Cafe. Now, it's a nice enough place with good coffee, but the bloody name. Anyway, I ended up having a bit of a yap with the owner who just sold his Harley because he wasn't riding it for the past few years due to his commitment in getting his business up and running. And it was days like this he was really missing the bike. run up the mountain was brilliant, no traffic, but somehow I jammed my GoPro trying to turn it on with my fat fingers and winter gloves, and it didn't record that part of the ride. I also jammed it when again I come across those roadside grazing cattle, where I'm certain the exact same bloody cow sauntered out in front of me just to make a dick of himself again. But besides this, it was a near perfect ride. You know, one of those rides where you just cruise along in a zen-like state, leaving the worries of the world back on the side of the road. Ah, the serenity. Now I was going to stop at Nimmitabel, especially when I saw a few bikes there, as like every other small town along a sparse route in Australia, it has the best pies in the world. But I was on a roll, and I didn't slow down again until I had to, when I spotted the flashing red and blues a few miles on. Now, I can only presume he was parked up there all alone with his lights flashing because the person he'd recently booked had just driven off, and he was doing some paperwork. But the sceptic inside me was wondering if he was checking to see if we'd slow down to 40, which is the new rule when passing lit up emergency vehicles on the side of the road.